Imagine if you could easily find solutions to make your region or city smarter, greener, better connected, more social, and closer to citizens. The Interreg Europe Policy Learning Platform can help you access knowledge about the latest policy trends, discover expert-validated good practices from all over Europe, find solutions in our peer review, get tailored support from our expert team. We can connect you with the right people and organizations. Together, we will find ways to solve your region's or city's challenges. Start your policy learning journey today.
So, good afternoon, everyone. It is my pleasure to welcome you to this Interreg Europe Policy Learning Platform online workshop under the Closer to Citizens strand. Today we are looking at how to enhance the benefits of urban-rural linkages, and we have some really excellent presentations from all over Europe to this end. As you all know, our cities and rural areas are not living in isolation. They are interlinked. And these linkages are really important for our citizens through social and cultural links, for access to healthcare and mobility, for science and education, but also for our natural environments through our rivers, for land use, blue-green infrastructures, and biodiversity, for example. And we have agro-food chains that are more and more important. So today we will see all of these different aspects and discuss how these linkages can be reinforced and enhanced. My name is Astrid Severin, and I'm a thematic expert at the Interreg Europe Policy Learning Platform. And I would also like you to welcome my expert colleagues that are with me here today. So we have Magda Michaliková and Arnault Morisson, who are also thematic experts. And we have Valentine Dufay from our communications team. Hello, colleagues, and a very warm welcome to you. Before we are starting, just some housekeeping rules. We are recording this workshop, and you will, of course, be able to find the recordings with all the presentations later on. Please don't be shy and contribute to our discussion. Write any questions that you may have in the chat, or you can also raise your hand if you like to ask a question. This is a workshop, so we are a little bit more interactive this time. And at the end of the workshop, we have some slots for help desk. So several people have registered for help desk. So please stay online when the workshop is finished, and we will speak to you during these help desk sessions. And finally, we will share a service. So please give us feedback and let us know how we can improve our events or what subjects you would like to discuss. This survey is going to pop up at the end of the workshop. So with this, I would like to give the word to Magda to introduce us to our agenda today.
Thank you very much, Astrid. And warm welcome to all of you from me as well. So what are we discussing today? After our little introduction, we will have a presentation of our very new and fresh policy brief on urban-rural linkages by our colleague Arnault. And after Arnault's presentation, we will go into our first session of the workshop, where we will look at territorial development and integration. We will start with a keynote speech from Dr. Jürgen Neumüller about the Capital Region Berlin-Brandenburg, formal and informal spatial planning approaches. And then we will have two good practices, the development strategy of the Silesian Voivodeship and the urban-rural link there, and the urban-rural linkages in the regional spatial and economic strategy of the southern region of Ireland. So very interesting and exciting good practices. After that, we will have a little break. And after our break, we'll go into the second session that is on well-being and sustainable development. We will open that session with a keynote speech from Mr. Marcin Spyra. with his presentation on sustainable rural urban development and ecosystem services. And then we will look at 3 good practices from our Interreg Europe projects. One looking at supporting young farmers and kind of helping them to stay in rural areas. One looking at the Tartu Smart Bike Share, and one on the plan for the future of the Horta Sud region. Of course, after all of the presentations, there is a space for questions, for discussion. So as Astrid said, you can type your questions in the chat. Yes, please make use of all the interesting people that we have here today to really ask your questions and discuss. And at the end, we will also have more time for a little panel discussion and more questions. So before we go into this interesting program, just a reminder of who we are, where are we coming from, what the policy learning platform does. So we say we offer access to people. What it means is we have a huge community at the Interreg Europe platform, and through events such as this one, through online webinars, online workshops, but also on-site workshops and events, we kind of help you to meet each other and meet people who are working on the same issues. You can also use the platform itself to search and look for people that might be interesting partners, and they maybe are working on things that you are working on as well. We also offer access to knowledge. So we have a lot of information, let's say, that has accumulated. We have a really huge number of good practices. We have policy briefs, stories, news articles, editorials. So all sorts of knowledge that has been created, but it's also being created all the time. And you can access that at the platform as well. And we offer access to expertise through our matchmakings and peer reviews. So these are opportunities where you can come to us with your specific problem or a policy challenge. And we find experts and colleagues, peers from all across Europe who will help you to solve that challenge. And with that, I just want to briefly mention the peer reviews, as it's one of our one of the favorite services of the platform, I would say. And these numbers might not be entirely correct because we are now having so many peer reviews in November that I think it's around 88 peer reviews implemented, and around like 13 still in the pipeline till the end of the year. Peer reviews are kind of a 1 day and a half / 2 days events where we really look in depth into your policy challenge. So if you have an idea, if that's something that sounds interesting, you can also look at the website. We will share a link where you can read more information about peer reviews. And you're welcome to apply or come to us if you have an idea for of a challenge that you would like to look more in depth into. And then just to finish off with an overview of our projects under the citizens mission. So here they are. We will hear from some of them, like PICOBELLO, Urban Coop, PROXIMITIES, in this workshop today. And yes, there will be more projects coming as well towards the end of the year and beginning of next year, since now the evaluation of the projects that have applied in the third call is ongoing. Okay, so that's just a little introduction for for those who don't know the policy learning platform that much yet. And with that, it would be nice to know where you are coming from as well. So we will have a little poll that you can answer. I will ask Valentin if you can please kindly share that. And yes, just let us know what type of organization you're coming from. It's always interesting for us to know that. If you're from local, regional, or national authority, from EU institution, NGO, from private sector or consultancy, or from academia, or maybe some other organization. And yeah, don't hesitate to let us know in the chat also which countries you're coming from, which projects you're coming from. And yeah, of course, if you don't see your type of organization in the poll, then you can let us know that as well. And it seems like we have around close to 50% of local, regional, and national authorities. And then NGOs in the second place, some private sector, some other. So be interesting to know which organizations these are. And we also have some academia and some EU institutions. And I think the trend is quite clear. So, okay. Well, thank you very much for voting and for writing in the chat. And without further ado, I'll give the word to Arnault, and we'll look at the policy brief. Thank you. The floor is yours, Arnault.
Thank you very much, Magda, for this short introduction. So let me introduce very shortly our great policy brief that was just released last week on urban-rural linkages. And I guess you will find the link to the policy brief in the chat. So very quickly, what we are talking about when we talk about urban-rural linkages is that very often we see a very a big divide in policies between urban and rural areas. They often seen as very distinct, thus requiring very distinct policy intervention. However, what we see is that they are deeply interconnected through different flows. You can think of flows of people, goods, services, capital, and knowledge as well. They have a lot of challenges, and challenges in one areas often affect the other. So challenges happening in urban areas also affect rural, and vice versa. But also solutions can also be found through this relationship. So urban-rural linkages refers to all those interconnections that are critical, as we discussed with Astrid, to ensure sustainable regional development, economic growth, social equity, and environmental sustainability. So you can have many types of interactions. Here are some of the interactions that you can have between urban and rural areas. Of course, you have those economic interactions, labor migration, infrastructures and services, environmental linkages, and knowledge and innovation transfer. So again, this idea of urban-rural linkages, they refer to those complex and very dynamic interactions between urban and rural areas that transcend the traditional administrative boundaries. And that's also very important, and we'll see in the next slide the role of functional areas. It also highlights the complementary roles and flows of resources, people, services, and activities between rural and urban regions, emphasizing their interdependence and mutual benefits. So functional areas, what are they is, I mean, we've seen that often we have those linkages that transcend those administrative boundaries. So then you can have functional areas across many different dimensions, actually. You can have functional areas defined through a social criteria. You can think about sparsely populated regions. You can have functional area defined mainly on economic criteria, can be a cluster or innovative regions. You can have also functional areas defined on heritage and landscape criteria. You can think of areas with very important cultural heritage, but very frequently we see the functional areas that are defined on geographical areas because it's very easy. You can think of mountain areas, deltas, island, coastal, or river catchment areas. And also you can define those functional areas through complex functional areas that can be areas of territorial cooperation or urban areas or rural areas. So here, when we talk about those functional areas for urban-rural linkages, it involves delineating the territory that clusters around urban centers and concentrates systemic relations, and also defining the challenges that can be addressed by enhancing urban-rural linkages. So here, again, what is very important is defining those functional areas, and can be through many ways. Often case, the OECD takes labor migration, so commuting patterns to define those functional areas. When you have defined the urban-rural linkages that you want to tackle and the functional areas, then you can start thinking about what type of governance structures you can put in place to address the challenge in your urban-rural areas. And this is one of the tools, the urban-rural partnerships. Here you can see all the different success factors to have those type of efficient and good urban-rural partnerships. So of course you need to define the leakages, you need to have a share problems, you need to have this functional unit identity, a shared strategy, the governance, the cooperation experience, the right timing. Also what is interesting is to take small steps, be incremental with very concrete projects, having a good framework, a diverse range of actors, and of course, finding motivated actors, finding the right change agents within your partnerships to have this type of leadership to make the changes. So here, again, one of the key takeaway of the policy brief is that functional area approach encourage urban and rural collaborations to enhance linkages and improve access to jobs and services. And here, rural-urban partnerships help manage those interactions, addressing shared challenges and improving regional outcomes through coordinated governance. In the policy brief, we give very concrete recommendations. So we have 5 different recommendations to have this type of successful urban-rural linkages. The first recommendations that we have for you, always using the experience and good practices from Interreg Europe projects, is to establish this type of rural-urban agreements for sustainable development. Here we're taking this example from this Interreg Europe project, Humore, which is about rural-urban partnerships. And this is a good practice that we find from Milan, metropolitan areas, where they have like this type of partnerships, and it's called the Milano Metropoli Rurale, which is an official agreement for local development, again focusing on these urban-rural linkages, again across transcending those administrative boundaries to reinforce connections through here is mostly like agri-food, so farming and agricultural entrepreneurship in the metropolitan regions of Milan, because what we see, there are a lot of pressures, right? Milan is growing very fast, and of course it affects also the rural areas. So here is about like finding this right balance in the development. when you do this type of agreements, you have to involve a lot of different stakeholders. And here you can see some of the stakeholders: the Municipality of Milan, the metropolitan areas, regional authorities, rural districts, and so on. And what is very interesting is that the role of action, so they have a very clear shared strategy with an action plan with many pilot projects and a lot of investment, as you can see. 171 million euros, so that's very significant. And we give also in this policy brief very clear, concrete key actions for policy makers, some of insights relating to the policy recommendations that we're giving, such as here is to develop these adaptable governance models. So of course you have evolving needs, always finding this adaptative type of governance, and of course being inclusive in the governance process with many different stakeholders being involved. So we encourage you to have a look, of course, and to read our policy brief, because it's a great one. You've seen like very a broad overview of what we've been discussing on urban rural linkages, but you can find much more in the policy brief. And Astrid, you have also something to share regarding transport and mobility regarding urban-rural linkages.
Exactly. Thank you very much, Arnaud, for speaking about this policy brief, which I really recommend for reading. And we had some questions on transport and mobility in the context of urban-rural linkages. This is being discussed under a different thematic topic, and I just wanted to point out that we have, of course, also for these kind of questions, a lot of policy information. We have had a webinar, for example, on integrated mobility and mobility as a service. We have a policy brief on demand responsive transport. And we also had peer reviews, which you can ask if you are interested in the area of transport and mobility in this context. So just to mention that, we have also, of course, other information available for you.
All right, excellent. Thanks so much, and I give you back the floor, Magda and Astrid.
Okay, thank you very much, Arnaud, for this great presentation. So the link is in the chat. If you want to read that policy brief afterwards, there you can find it. And before we are having our first keynote speech, we have a little word cloud for you. We wanted to ask you in which areas do you foster urban and rural linkages in your own region? So, for example, we have just seen the example from Milano, where they're working on the agro-food chains, for example. Can you share with us which of these areas you're working on? That can be, of course, blue-green infrastructures or green corridors, mobility projects, science relations, education, so on. Which areas are you working in? And we will keep this word cloud open and come back to it after a while, so you can always add to it at a later point. So we have also territorial planning coming up, maybe also some land use issues. Mobility taking a big place, agro-food chains are catching up as well. Heritage, cultural, governance issues, of course. Activating local people, how to work with the citizens. Excellent. Well, I think we will be adding a lot of interesting points to this word cloud. So thank you very much. As I said, it will stay open. And with this, we are opening our first session now, which is discussing territorial development and integration. And I'm very happy today to have somebody from my home region, which is not happening so often. So I'm really glad that Mr. Neumüller has been agreeing to make a presentation on the Capital Region Berlin-Brandenburg and tell us a little bit how you're working together there. Very interesting structure that you're having with the joint spatial planning department of Berlin-Brandenburg. So we're looking forward to your presentation. Please always indicate when you want the next slide.
Yeah, thank you very much for invitation and for introducing my presentation. It's really impressive to see how many people are attending this workshop. So let me introduce shortly my topic and my institution. So my presentation will be about the Capital Region Berlin-Brandenburg, which is not only the capital Berlin, but also the surrounding area, the state of Brandenburg. And I will have a look into our formal and informal spatial planning approaches to address this functional urban area, if it's a functional urban area, as going with your definitions. My department, Joint Spatial Planning Department, is a joint department of two ministries. So we have regional ministries in Berlin and in Brandenburg, which takes care of spatial planning. And this is a unique administration because you can put it like this. I have two heads, two ministers, let's say, from two different states who have to agree upon their joint strategy. To give you some insight about the structure of our work, you can see on the next slide the overview of the federal system of Germany, which is consisting out of 16 independent states. And this is the substructure. And we have different legal systems and different state administrations also on this level. You see Berlin-Brandenburg on the right upper corner with Berlin in the middle and Brandenburg surrounding. On the next slide, you can zoom in a little bit more to this region. These two states, Berlin and Brandenburg, they consist altogether of about roughly 6 million people. Berlin itself has about 3.7 million inhabitants, and you see in a bit more colorful yellow the Berlin suburban area, which is already part of Brandenburg, with about 1 million people living there, very close to the capital. And then the large area, the further metropolitan area, where also more than 1.5 million people live, which is the west of Brandenburg, so to say. And this part is, you can find there are some regions which have the lowest density, population density at all in Germany. So they belong, per definition, to the capital region, but we have very different, let's say, basis, let's say, how many people are living there, how much industry is in a certain part of the region. So on the next slide, there's a kind of, let's say, overall strategy, which is a kind of strategic framework both administrations set up. It's a common strategic framework, let's say, driven by politics and administration, that Berlin and Brandenburg should be connected by these development corridors. And by this, the core city and the far out regions, they should be connected strategically in order to connect people, businesses, and science along. And our approach is to use the railway lines the public transport system. And I noticed that transport was mentioned in this poll right now as a very important issue. And also for Berlin-Brandenburg, this is true because we have so many people commuting both ways, actually. But our approach is that they should commute on public transport, if possible. And by this, let's say the knowledge from the central metropolitan area and the rural areas should be connected. How do we do that? And on the next slide, you can see the printout of our plan. And this is a state development plan for the whole capital region. You see in the middle the red color, which is Berlin, and a lot of green fields also in this. To be very precise, this is a formal plan which we have to do as a spatial planning, and we have a long tradition in Germany on spatial planning. And this plan enters into force just 4 years ago, so it's quite actual plan. It should, be stable, let's say, for 10 to 15 years, such a plan, and then we have to do another one or to revise it. And what is important that this plan involves all the actors in the region. They can give their input, and we have to check every argument which is reaching us. So it's a kind of a process which takes 4 to 5 years to set up such a plan. And it's important to have this kind of open process, because this is a plan which is binding then the local administration in their local development. On the next slide, you see the topics which are stressed in this plan. And it's a wide range, let's say. Almost every topic is addressed, from climate, flooding, energy, to open space development, economic development also, but also public services and transport. And I picked up some of these bold letters for the next slides, where we can have a short look into it. So on the next slide, the transport issue is mentioned. We do have a quite well-functioning functional transport network here in our region. There's a public transport authority also in place, organizing the public transport. But there's also quite dense network of motorways and so on. And in gray, you see that the region is also stretching out, let's say, along the European transport network to neighboring regions like Hamburg, or on Polish side, Szczecin. And so we are part of the European transport network, and this is interconnected to our regional transport network. On the next slide, that's the issue about the public services, and we cannot steer it to the end which public service is in place, but we can steer it which public services should be in place at which places, so to say, in which centers. So there's a hierarchy of centers which is defined in this plan, which is in the core, the metropolis, Berlin. And then there are high order centers. There are 4 of them in our region. We call that in German Oberzentren, high order, and middle centers, middle order centers, which have regional functions, so to say. You see them here on the map. And the reason behind is that there should be a kind of concentration, polycentric concentration of services, so that people can reach, let's say, the schools, the hospitals, and so on, within limited time. On the next slide, this is zooming in a little bit to the settlement development. And you can see here the so-called Berlin Star. Actually, you can see in the night, you can see it from high above that this settlement development is also, let's say, stretching along the public railway access. And this is our backbone for future development. So we don't want to have a conglomeration of settlement development. It should be developed along this kind of axis. And these axes are stretching far into Brandenburg from Berlin on. So this is our kind of backbone for settlement development. And on the next slide, you see also again these main settlement areas, which I just mentioned, the high order centers and the middle order centers. And in these centers, there should be also a concentration of the settlement development. So there should be more housing in these places as in the rural areas in between. And this is also connected to the public services, but it's also connected to keep areas out of buildings, so to say, to keep them as greenfield areas. And finally, on the next slide, you see this open space network, which is quite huge. And this is a network of open spaces, which is consisting out of agricultural areas, but also forest areas, nature conservation areas. So this is a combined category, so to say, with a multifunctional use, also used for people, for recreation, and for nature development. And in these parts, in these green parts, certain functions are not allowed, like industries or like huge settlement areas. So this is, let's say, the counterpart of the settlement development.
2 minutes, please.
Okay, so that was the formal plan, and now two or three slides more for informal activities which we are doing. We think that this plan is good, but it's not enough. We have to have more, let's say, impulses and projects also ongoing, also some kind of collaboration formats. So we have regional park forums, dialogue forum for the airport development area, for example. And we have also, let's say, cross-border, closer cooperation from Berlin and neighboring Brandenburg cities. You can see here regional parks, certain development access, and the fourth point on the next slide, excuse me, on the next slide, you see also the communal neighborhood forum, Berlin-Brandenburg, which is, let's say, a bottom-up initiatives of the cities. As we are a regional authority, this is the local development driven by the cities and Berlin districts. And my last slide on the next is about, if you click once more, you see red arrows. You see here the innovation axis, and this is a kind of strategy which is ongoing and which we would like to further develop, to link strategically along these development axes, which are shown here, universities and industries, and also to develop growth at these in these corridors and in these axes, and to interlink with a kind of collaboration format, which is organized by a secretariat, more to bring the people together and to bring the institutions together. So this is part of our strategic framework, which is also part of politics and administration issues. I will end with this and finally saying that this kind of functional urban area can be also seen as an administration issue, as we have two administrations working together and we have to take care of the whole region, let's say. You can subdivide it, let's say, into several functions, as I mentioned, the airport area and so on, but the bigger picture is what I have shown you just right now. So thank you very much for your attention and looking forward for your questions and further discussions.
Thank you very much for your presentation. That's a very interesting approach that you're having here. First of all, that you already have your governance structure with your joint planning department, so that you can actually work together with the two administrative structures of Berlin and of Brandenburg. So congratulations to that. I think that is a very good starting point. And then your plan, the formal plan that you presented, plus the bottom-up initiatives that are coming from the different, let's say maybe spatial units that you're having, so and how these can be combined. I don't know, we have a first question, which is coming from Helena Papa. She was asking how long does it take to finalize the transport plan and how is it financed?
The transport plan, so I presented here the spatial plan, but the transport plan is a part of it or a separate part of it. And this is financed by the two states, but this is covering more the transport as such, the mobility. The infrastructure part of the transport plan is partly financed by the federal government, by the Ministry of Transport. Because the railway, German railway is responsible for building the German railway sections, and also the motorway is a federal issue. So this is separated, but to set it up, it takes about 3 to 5 years, and it will be also renewed if it's outdated.
Thank you very much. I have a question to you. On one of your slides, you were saying that what you're doing is also about bringing growth and knowledge from the central metropolitan areas to the rural areas. Do you also see like that, or is it one of your points you're working on, that this becomes also like a two-way exchange involving the rural areas more also on delivering key services, like, for example, the agriculture and the food provision, or do you see that as a one-way street?
No, it's a two-way street, of course. So there are also projects going on, and I think not finance of Interreg Europe program, but Horizon projects, for example, which are dealing with the food industry, and this is closely linked with the regional market, let's say, in Berlin for food products. And also the wood industry or forest industry is also a linkage, let's say. And when it comes to energy, then we have a very obvious interaction, let's say, of producing renewable energies in Brandenburg, which the main consumption is in Berlin. So this is also kind of deliverable service, let's say, to Berlin, but also the service where the rural regions can make some benefit out of it.
Thank you. We have a very long question, and I would ask you to maybe have a relatively short answer. So we have a question how if you implemented any specific community engagement strategies to manage resistance to change, especially regarding major changes associated with these plans and projects that you presented, and how did these strategies help encourage acceptance and support within the community?
So it's not our impulse, so to say, but this communal neighborhood forum. This is, let's say, as I said, an own bottom-up initiative of the cities and Berlin districts in the closer neighborhood to Berlin, and it. Obviously, it's not so easy for them to find a common ground, let's say, because when it comes to the local level, then there are also conflicting interests, let's say, and they are just searching about their own common strategy. So this is an ongoing process on this. And civil actors, they are, let's say, independently from our administration, trying to establish, let's say, bottom-up initiatives also on, as I mentioned, on food, on other issues.
Thank you very much. Yeah, we see maybe citizen engagement could play a little bit of a bigger role in this process. Maybe an idea for the future that can also be adapted to more formally include it also in the plans that you're having. But thank you very much for this point and for making this presentation about the area of Berlin-Brandenburg. And with this, we are going to the neighbors, and we would like to ask from the PICOBELLO project, we would like to ask Dariusz to present us what you're doing in Silesia, in the Silesian Voivodeship, with the urban-rural link. So the word is yours, Dariusz.
You're muted.
Oh, thank you very much. I was just saying that I'm very grateful for the invitation, and I'm also impressed with the number of people participating in this workshop. It is always good to speak to a number of people. I would like to first introduce my institution. The Marshal Office of the Silesian Voivodeship is the regional authority that is governing the region of Silesia. Silesia is very well known for being the largest industrial and hard coal mining area in Europe, with more than 4 million people living in this area, and with highly urbanized space, the urban space, and with very high density of population, which is exceeding 350 people per square kilometer. We only occupy, let's say, 3.9% of the whole country, but we are second in terms of economy, right behind the capital of Poland, which is Warsaw. As a regional authority, we are responsible for development strategies for our region, and we are actually developing the core pillars of, let's say, the platform for planning the development of our region, with the most important document, which is the development strategy. Right now we have this development strategy, which is called Silesia 2030, and this document is sketching out the major directions of development for our region in the now current decade. And within this document, we have scheduled what we want our region to become around 2030. Among its strategic, we have like 4 strategic objectives of this strategy, which is responsible transition. As I mentioned, we are the largest coal mining region, and we are now undergoing a very widely planned coal transition towards green and innovative economy. So we want to be a region of responsible transition. And what it means in practice is that we want to become a very innovative region with a very strong economy, especially in small and medium enterprises. And I come from the Department of Development that is mainly planning how to distribute, how to spend European funding that is available under cohesion funds and recently under Just Transition Plan. So we are focusing on how to plan the development of our region in the development strategy, and then we reflect those directions in practical documents that actually schedule the distribution of funding, like European funds for Silesia, the two that are printed in blue. They actually are scheduled how to spend the money to achieve the strategic objectives that has been described in Silesian Voivodeship development strategy.
Dariusz, you have 3 minutes left.
Oh, sorry.
Yes.
The PICOBELLO project is it is a project that is scheduled to help regions that are partners under this project to integrate values of new European Bauhaus, like sustainability, aesthetic, and inclusions. And under this project, we have selected a couple of instances of good practice in the region, and now I'm going to present it, those good practices. First one is an observatory of design. We believe that design is very important in initiating regional development, and we have actually supported a partnership of 3 institutions, like the Cieszyn Castle, one academy, and the city of Katowice, to go with this initiative to actually somehow shape the new science, let's say, picture of development. Then we have in the middle of our city of Katowice, there was the former coal mine Silesia, which became a spot of very large investments in this post-industrial mining infrastructure. We turned this infrastructure into a museum of the region and coal mining. The International Congress Center that you can see right in front of this flying saucer UFO convention hall that has been actually designed and constructed in the 60s. So this process started in the 60s, still under communism, where the coal mine was still existing there. But we completed the whole thing in early 2000. Another part of this area is Polish National Radio Symphonic Orchestra in Katowice, a philharmonic with a famous concert room, which is very modern and with a very good quality of sound. We also have other projects to support the spatial and infrastructural development of our region. One of them is a project of a database project to actually catalog and describe all the post-mining and post-industrial areas in the region. We have a lot of those areas, more than 10,000 hectares. So there is a very high work to be done under this project. the last thing is there was a question. One of the questions, how you can let's say disseminate the information about transition, and how to make people aware of this process, and how to make them friendly with the process. So we have 2 stages of regional observatory of the transition process. These are projects that are actually disseminating and promoting transition among the society, among different groups of society, like business, NGOs, administration, and others. Thank you very much. I will gladly answer any questions, and big thank you.
Thank you very much, Dariusz, for illustrating how you are developing your region and how you are attempting this sustainable transition. For example, with the cultural aspects that you have been highlighting, with the design center, with the symphonic orchestra, but also with your database project and so on. I think a very nice approach as well. We see how many linkages you have throughout these areas and these regions that you can mobilize and that you can actually use for your development and for your benefits, also based on your history and where you're coming from. So very interesting what you have been sharing with us. So far, we don't see any questions, so maybe you keep them for yourselves until we are coming to a little bit later point when we have a discussion at the end of the workshop. So we would like to thank you for now. And this would help us to go to Ireland now, where we have a speaker from the Southern Regional Assembly, who is going to speak to us about their regional spatial and economic strategy, so for the Southern region in Ireland. So please go ahead and let us know how you are starting with that.
Yeah, thank you very much for that introduction, and thank you very much for this opportunity to speak. I am Eoin O'Connor. I am here from the Southern Regional Assembly, and I'll be discussing the urban and rural linkages in our regional spatial and economic strategy. And I guess just to kind of reiterate what they are. So urban and rural areas are deeply interconnected with those of goods, people, services, capital, and knowledge. And these interactions are what make up urban rural linkages, and they play a key role in driving sustainable regional development, economic growth, environmental sustainability, and also promoting social equity. So in that context, regional policies such as those in our spatial and economic strategy play a crucial role in strengthening and creating positive linkages between those two areas. So in my presentation, I'm going to briefly overview kind of who the Regional Assembly are, Irish policy context, key concepts, transformational changes happening, implementation measures, and monitoring. And I have 7 minutes, so it's going to be a whistle-stop tour of those elements.
Eoin, maybe you turn off your camera because your connection is not so great.
Okay.
It's a pity, but maybe then it becomes a little bit better.
Okay, no problem. So the Southern Regional Assembly, there are 3 regional assemblies in Ireland. So we are in the south of the country. We are comprised of 10 local authorities, approximately 1.8 million people, and we also have the functions of creating regional economic and spatial plans. We manage the development of regional and development funding. We are also responsible for the development and implementation and promotion of regional development policy and activities. And we're acting as a contact point for EU-funded transnational programs. And we also coordinate actions to support the effectiveness of local government and public services. So I guess just kind of give you a bit of context in terms of what that policy context is in Ireland. So we have a 3-tier planning system. We have a national planning framework, the regional strategies, and also local plans delivered by the local authority level. So these plans and policies are integrated, so they have to take cognizance of the hierarchy as they're being developed. A key focus of the national planning framework is the delivery of balanced regional growth. Ireland is planning for up to 1 million people up to 2040, which is huge growth for our island. In the NPF, we have they highlight the different scales of settlement and the roles they play, the importance of compact growth, where we're seeking to have 40% of our growth in built-up areas, important role of cities, so we're looking for 50% of that growth to be in cities, and also kind of reversing rural depopulation and promoting the rural economy and agriculture. So this just kind of highlights that there's integrated governance and policies within Ireland. And I guess a key focus maybe of us is also these housing targets, which we're maybe going to be focused on, and in particular now with an election coming up here. The regional, spatial and economic strategy. So just to highlight here that we have our vision, our core vision is about creating a green region, a livable region, and also a creative and innovative region. Within that, we have 11 strategic regional strategic objectives, and below those there are about 300 different regional policy objectives within that. So it's quite a chunky document. The strategy is committed to supporting people and places in both rural and urban areas. We use assessment typology as a tailored response to both the challenges facing the region, and also we recognize our key towns, villages, and rural areas and our cities as a way to capitalize on our strengths and the economic drivers for growth also. We also have a economic strategy which focuses on different elements and approaches which are aligned with this kind of theme of looking at rural and urban linkages, such as kind of placemaking for enterprise development, smart specialization, so recognizing those different strengths of different areas, and capacity building as well, just to name a few. Here is a slide I'd like to just highlight just to kind of, I guess, show what that scale of growth is and why it's just important to highlight that it's going to be transformational. So this is in Ireland, in the southern region, we have 3 of the 5 cities. So one of those cities is Waterford, and it grew over 111 years by about 32,000 people. So that's that's okay. But within 18 years, we're hoping for it to grow by about 16,000. So we're hoping it to achieve roughly half that growth within a fifth of the time. And I think what I'm highlighting here with this black line versus this green line is that growth over that 111 years was it was characterized probably by carbon intensive type development, power orientated, a bit more sprawly type development. And what we're going to be doing and what we're moving towards is green growth. So we're looking to decouple growth from carbon emissions. So we're doing something entirely new, which is why I'm labeling it transformational, that it is looking at maybe this relationship, which would have had negative urban-rural linkages, to a one with more positive urban-rural linkages, where, like was mentioned by a previous speaker, that you're using real renewable energy like wind and solar to power those cities and areas, and also you're looking at the pollutants from those areas being reduced or eliminated as well. In terms of how we are implementing the strategy, so I'm just going to noting my time as well. Some key areas are regeneration and placemaking, sustainable mobility, blue-green infrastructure, and nature-based solutions, and also towards a learning region. So our PROXIMITIES project is focused on regeneration and placemaking. So that's one of our regional policy objectives 31. And that's also an Interreg project. And what the SRA, our Southern Region Assembly, aims to do with this project is to create a sustainable place framework to address urban challenges in the region. And this framework will focus on integrated planning, excellent design, placemaking to develop quality, inclusive, and adaptable urban environments. So it's really looking at those social dimensions, governance of brownfield areas, high density and compact development, and also proximities, such as your access to services and green spaces. And through this, we're also hoping to address those issues like urban sprawl, our dependency, poor housing mix, and create sustainable and inclusive communities. Just my final slide here is just to highlight as well that in any plan and in any would say, effort that you do, you need to monitor it. So the regional assemblies have collaborated on the development of a regional development monitor. So this looks at kind of where we can and where there's data available, live tracking progress on different indicators. And within that, we also produce 2-year monitoring reports as well. So we're very active in terms of making sure that what we do and what we are have set out as our policy objectives is data-driven and evidence-based, and we're continuously monitoring what we do. So that is my time, and I will stop sharing.
Thank you very much, Eoin, for your presentation of how you're going about it with your plan in Southern Ireland, and bringing together the cities and the rural areas with your regional, spatial, and economic strategies. Very interesting approach. We see a little bit like in Berlin, you have all these areas that you're tackling and where you're starting to work. So this regional development monitor, you have it for a long time already. Do you have some first results that you can share already with the participants of the workshop? Uh-oh. Okay, I'm afraid we might have lost Eoin now.
I'm sorry, my internet has turned off my camera there, but yeah, I'm still here, and I missed what you just said there. It froze a little bit. Apologies.
Okay, we have difficulties understanding you. I mean, at least I do. I don't know how it is for the rest. The quality of the sound is not so great. So maybe we can use the break that we're having now. We have a short break before we're coming back to a very interesting second session where we are going to speak more about well-being and sustainable development, which you also already mentioned, Eoin. Maybe we can work in the meantime a little bit on your sound. And I would ask everyone to continue working on the word cloud that we have started earlier. So my colleague is going to bring it up again. And I'd ask everyone to be back here at 15:25. Stay here, just turn off your cameras and come back in about 15 minutes where we continue with our second session, and maybe also have some questions to Eoin. So see you back at 15:25 Central European Time in 15 minutes. Thank you. Okay, can I ask everyone to slowly come back? Maybe for our speakers to turn on their cameras. Excellent. Good to see you all again. The poll is going on and the word cloud is building, very impressive. We have a lot of very interesting subjects which are being put on the word cloud by the participants. So we see that mobility seems to be one of the big areas for establishing these links between urban and rural areas. We also have planning, urban planning, territorial planning coming up. Food, very strong in different remarks, agro-food chains, food-related companies. So governance is one of the other issues. But I'm still missing a little bit. We're seeing some green transition, some rural resilience, but very little to green, blue infrastructure. Maybe the resilience that the cities are all needing with what we are seeing now with the floods and the droughts, the water availability. I see that missing a little bit, but I'm sure it's still going to come up. So we have reached our new session, and before we are starting, I wanted to check if Eoin is back with us and if we can hear him. Does not appear
Hello?
to be.
Yeah,
Hello.
I'm back. I've moved to a different room. Can you hear me any better?
Yeah, we hear you much better. We can also see you. So thank you very much for making this possible. That we have one question for you from Roman, who is asking is how big is the share of the planned population growth in Southern Ireland coming from immigration?
specific question, I would need to check our projections. But yeah, so I think we're a bit of an outlier in that, yeah, we still have natural population growth as well as immigration growth. And we have a huge diaspora as well. So it's yeah, I could put an answer in the chat before the end of the session.
And if you don't manage, you can also follow us, and we can answer Roman later in writing, and you can look it up later if you want, so that you can follow our workshop in the meantime. So very good. Thank you very much for your question, Roman. And we're moving on to our second session. Now we are speaking about well-being and sustainable development. So the issue which I was still missing a little bit on our word cloud. And we're really happy that we have a keynote speech today from Marcin Spyra, who is going to speak about sustainable rural and urban development and ecosystem services. And so, Marcin, the word is yours. Please share your slides, and we're looking forward to your presentation.
Thank you very much for the invitation. I'm really glad to be here. My name is Marcin Spyra, and I'm working right now at two universities. So the first one is Ostrava University in the Czech Republic, and the second one is Martin Luther University in Germany in Halle-Wittenberg. And I'm happy to be the guest today in my home region, Upper Silesia. So I was very glad to see also the presentation coming from that region. So I'm actually today in Katowice. But I'm gonna speak about sustainable urban rural development and ecosystem services. So I will refer to some of the research which I have been doing together with my colleagues. But before I go to that, I would like to offer you a little visualization of how we can actually understand the urban rural development or urban rural linkages. I think the nice way of doing that is this transect, what we see on the screen right now. In the transect, we can define quite easily different places, different sections, different parts of this kind of a transect, starting from a very much urbanized part and ending up in a very much natural zone with a lot of open spaces. And of course, all of these zones are characterized by different land uses, different flows, different socio-ecological processes, etc. What is, I think, interesting and what we are very well aware of is that there are different flows of people, products, and services within the urban-rural transect. This is what we have heard today already a lot. But from my perspective and from the perspective of the team I'm cooperating with, it is very important that we also understand that this is a territory that has not defined administrative boundary, that it is overlapping several administrative units. And of course, as we also already heard today, there are different cohesion policies which promotes, for example, functional areas or different other policies for territories where people actually share their lives. That is pretty important. In my work, I'm referring to a slightly different term, but I think there are a lot of overlaps between both terms, meaning I'm working with peri-urban landscapes, which are fluid mixture of natural, anthropogenic land covers, land uses related to green open spaces, agricultural fields, artificial areas with different degrees of urbanization. As we can see on this graph, the peri-urban areas are very much dynamic. They are spreading in the landscape, as we can see in the arrow presented on this graph. They are also very difficult to delimitate. And what is very important for us today, they are located at the rural to urban interface. So we are, so to say, starting from the city center, going through the inner urban, suburban, like we saw in Berlin today, for example. And then we have this very strange mixture in the peri-urban areas of forested, agricultural build-up areas, etc. And all of that things, it creates very specific context for our research and also for the policy making, I believe. But there is also a second term, which maybe some of you are already aware of, meaning the ecosystem services. To put it very simple, the ecosystem services are benefits people obtain from different ecosystems. But of course, there are different classifications of those ecosystem services. And we have provisioning services, regulating services. So provisioning, for example, food and water, regulation of floods, supporting services like soil formation, cultural services, which we discuss very often, for example, recreational. In our works and my works, we have been analyzing quite a lot ecosystem services trade-offs, and that represent a very specific situation when we are decreasing one service and in the result we are increasing in another one. So this is a very specific aspect, and I think it is slightly underestimated in policy making and planning, and that was one of the reasons why we got in our team interested in this very specific aspect. We made a study where we analyzed 24 different case studies of peri-urban areas located worldwide, and we were interested in different drivers, governance obstacles, and improvements related to how to tackle ecosystem services trade-offs in peri-urban contexts. Here you can see on a slide different drivers of that, what we discovered by analyzing our case studies. As you can see, a lot of those drivers are related to various conflicts, like, for example, related to cultural and provisioning trade-offs. We could have a conflict between current land use and those requested for ecosystem services by local governance actors. Or when we think about different types of cultural ecosystems, we could have conflicts between new and old inhabitants. Of course, urban expansion, like the last driver is a very common problem, or reducing the capacity, the regulating capacity of ecosystems related to different peri-urbanization processes which we observe in our regions. We also analyzed, as I mentioned, obstacles on how the existing planning documents and policy instruments are tackling ecosystem services trade-offs, and here we see the results. Very often the proposed policy instrument or planning instrument is actually not explicitly addressing the trade-offs, so it is not talking about them at all. Or there is, for example, lack of coordination between different policy/planning documents that are addressing different part of peri-urban landscape. But we didn't stop with this study. We were also analyzing a different set of peri-urban landscapes. This time it was 26 different peri-urban landscapes, again, located in different contexts. And here the obstacles were slightly different. For example, lack of financial resources, no big surprise, I guess, governance fragmentation or coordination between policies and instruments that should or are addressing different aspects of a peri-urban landscape. Coming back to the first study, we also were interested in improvements. So we asked our respondents what kind of improvements they can think to better address ecosystem services trade-offs. And here we have the results. So they were saying mostly about the implementation of the proposed instrument or planning document, which should be based on improved cooperation, communication of different governance actors, or, for example, to increase general awareness about peri-urban processes and their specific impact on ecosystem services. The second study, the similar question, and here our respondents were highlighting other aspects, enhancing cooperation, communication of different governance actors, integrating the described policy instrument within planning and management instruments, or the need for increased awareness, again, about, in general, saying peri-urbanization. I will now go to the second study, which I mentioned already, the one with 26 case studies. Here we have been analyzing different policy instruments, and we were assigning those policy instruments, firstly categorizing them under the 4 categories which we see on the screen, and we assigned the policy instruments to our case studies just to see what kind of policy mixes, what is the different composition and types of the policy instruments which are being implemented in our case studies per urban landscapes. The results of that you see on the graph, so I just only mentioned that the amount of dots shows us amount of policy instruments which were emerging in the case study landscapes. A different, quite specific observation which emerged from this study, meaning that policy mixes combining different types of instruments suffering from shortcomings and can encounter more obstacles than policy mixes based on combinations of regulatory instruments. So one can say that more traditional top-down approaches might experience a little bit less shortcomings. Nevertheless, we didn't stop in this point, and we started to discuss something what we call the governance mix. And a governance mix is, in our opinion, something slightly different from a policy mix. First of all, it is a mix of not only policy instruments, what we have seen, but it is also a set of policy support tools and methodologies, which is very well described and promoted by Intergovernmental Platform for Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services, So these kind of tools can be, for example, educational tools, awareness raising, training, capacity buildings activities. So not specifically policy instrument, but some approaches which support them. An active scientifically based landscape monitoring component, we have seen also examples of that. Integrating various land use planners actors with actors involved in other policymaking processes who other research shows not only the same groups, and well-established, transparent and multi-layer coordination among all governance activities and involved actors should be in place to provide a remedy for called by us governance fragmentation. So I would like to end the speech today with a little result which we obtained from our Interreg Europe project, which is already finalized 2 years ago. It is a RENATUR project. In this project, we were discussing and thinking and providing some policy improvements on how to better protect peri-urban open spaces. And one of the suggestions, I think quite interesting, was a regional management platform. Again, we know already that that kind of examples exist. What we would like to underline here is that the platform should be based on building trust, the constant building trust process. And then, as you see on this little drawing, there are different activities which can be undertaken by the platform, merging, for example, top-down and bottom-up initiatives, planning policy initiatives, sharing knowledge. I strongly believe that we need a lot of knowledge sharing and awareness raising activities nowadays. Different workshops, of course, supporting founding acquisitions, consolidation of different stakeholders, advising, etc., etc. So that was my last slide, and I'm very glad that I could present this research today with you. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Marcin, for presenting this, giving us like a really glimpse of your research and going through it very fast. I guess is a challenge. What I'm taking from it, and maybe you can you can correct me. So what you're saying is like we need these policy mixes, but we have to also be careful that we are not only mixing policy instruments, but that it's also supporting tools, methodologies that are being involved, that we also have the right mix of stakeholders that comes together. So, for example, the land use planners that they're being involved as well. And to address this, what you call the governance fragmentation, is that the biggest obstacle, this governance fragmentation that you see in establishing these urban-rural linkages or the peri-urban linkages?
I think so, yes. So from the research which we have been doing, it is indeed a problem that the governance fragmentation is there. So there are different institutions responsible for different activities and also addressing different territorial extents. And as we know, and as I was trying to show very briefly today, peri-urban landscapes or rural-urban linkages are not covering or are not stopping in one administrative unit. So this governance fragmentation is indeed a problem. And I think that another one is also bringing different stakeholders, constantly bringing different stakeholders, not only those who are responsible for policymaking and regional planning, because they do it, but also, for example, private sector, which at least in our part of Europe can be a problem. We discussed it also in our Interreg Europe project, also involving something what I call the support squads. So talking with university students, talking with school pupils, talking with a general public. This is already, we are doing a lot of in this matter, but I think there is still a lot of things to be improved, to be done with different methods. For example, testing different, what I like to call governance prototypes. So maybe design thinking approaches can help us. So it is a kind of a constant process of governing, planning, discussing, and seeing what comes out of it.
So if I take our example from Berlin, where they say they have like a common structure that they have established, which is excellent. They have the plan, which is there for like a longer term planning. And they have some structures which are doing bottom up, but what you're saying is this has to be a very constant process that all the time is being fueled, where a lot of stakeholders being involved in this process on a constant basis. And also, I think was Ms. Neumüller was mentioning at the beginning that you have some flexibility in your plans, that you can adapt them over time, so that you're not like in a strict straitjacket, let's say, that you can be very flexible in your policies. One thing which we are being asked by Mr. Neumüller is, do you also identify a lack of capacity, especially of local institutions?
Yes, of course, specifically to those who are less powerful. So I think there is a lot of knowledge and also resources in the larger cities, in the larger metropolitan areas, like in Berlin or in Katowice even. But there are many other smaller players, so to say, who are struggling with capacities, who are not having enough experience, maybe even knowledge, and who desperately need support. So I think that this a little bit marginalized areas has to be also taken very carefully into consideration and see what is actually the effect of a larger city over them. Because sometimes there are some processes which start in a larger city, like mobility. We see it in our word cloud. The mobility is very, very often inspired, so to say, or the reason for the mobility is the large city, but the results of this mobility, I'm thinking mostly about the private car-based mobility, are seen in the smaller places, in the smaller towns. So I think that this is something what is a very important topic, and I was talking already to a couple of colleagues and also policymakers, and maybe this is also a good topic for a further investigation. So, for example, the Interreg Central Europe is addressing that in a recent call. So there is already some capacity building processes going on, and I think they are very good and they are very, very valuable for us.
Thank you. Thank you for this answer. I think this capacity building is what we are trying to do here with the entire policy learning platform, exchanging methodologies, supporting tools, bringing the knowledge out there, and hopefully also enable some knowledge sharing between the different actors. And one last question for me is, you said that, I hope I understood this correctly, you said that with the top-down processes that you see in sustainable development and ecosystem services, you see less shortcomings. Is that a correct understanding, or less shortcomings compared to bottom-up approaches? Can you just say, like, very briefly, 2-3 words about that?
This is the result which we get from our study. So again, we are studying 26 case studies, different case studies of peri-urban landscapes from different regions, not only from Europe, actually, from different other regions. And this emerged from the survey which we did, because the study was based on a survey. We were talking with the representatives of those regions, and it turned out that those regions who are implementing mostly legal and regulatory instruments, so more top-down instruments, they are, so to say, easier to implement, technically speaking. But it doesn't mean that they are actually more effective in reaching specific goals. So if we are, for example, talking about all these support tools and methodologies, they are not easy to be implemented because they are very often bottom-up initiatives, like, for example, this awareness raising or training capacity, etc. So that is why this is my interpretation of the result. That is why we might say that it is the more shortcomings can be awaited when we are mixing different types of policy instruments. Again, the definition of the policy instrument was also taken from International Intergovernmental Platform for Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services. There's a very good webpage which you can have a look on the definition of that. And yeah, so more mixes, more uncertainties, but I strongly believe that better outcomes.
Thank you. Thank you. Very nice words for finishing this question round. So with that, we're going to our good practices, and we're starting with Daniel, who is going to speak to us about how they are supporting young farmers to get started. So here we go. Daniel, you're starting your presentation. You can already bring it up, and let's hope it works.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for inviting me to this very interesting and very nice discussion about the good practices on the Interreg platform. So my name is Daniel Alexandri. I'm the head of Agrometeorological Service from Meteor Romania. I'm going to present a good practice which is related on support for installation of young farmers in Romania. I must confess that that is not our, let's say, policy. We are not the owner of the policy. An agency, agricultural agency for investments in Romania, is responsible for this good practice. We are just trying to make exchange of these good practices between the partners of the project involved in the Down to Earth project, which is in Interreg Europe project. So one slide only. We are the National Meteorological Administration. We have the national authority in meteorological field in Romania. We are also involved in several different policy instruments that concerns especially climate change and the weather generally in all the economical sectors. We are, let's say, the main responsible for delivering the information and the studies necessary for building, upgrading the strategies in Romania, which is related on climate change, on land degradation, desertification, and so on. So Down to Earth project involves 7 countries, 8 partners. The lead partner is from Spain, Agencia from Rural Development from region Galicia. The Foundation Juan de la Vega, which is also an agricultural involved agency, is one of the partner. Also the community of Campobasso from Italy. The regional agency from Neckar-Alp, Germany, also the University of Patras from Greece, and of course Meteor Romania, which is involved on rural part and rural impact of the climate change regarding the population and let's say the danger of people that are going to the big cities to live, to work, and so on. This good practice that I'm going to talk on this session is, as I said before, good practice, policy instrument which is was implemented by the Rural Investments Agency from Romania, related on Minister of Agriculture, and because of the connection that we have from our department, Agrometeorological Department, with Ministry of Agriculture, we already involved this agency as a stakeholder and providing us the support in order to provide to the project any good practice that could fit to the subject of the project. And this support for installation of young farmers is a policy instrument that they are implemented already in Romania and is part of the highlighted topic in our project, access barriers to young farmers in depopulated areas. So this measure was have the purpose, the objective to install for the first time the young farmers which want to work in agricultural area, to encourage the young families to move from the cities to the depopulated area like rural areas in order to develop a professional, let's say, work in agriculture. This measure was applied in several sessions between May 2016 and October 2018. I believe it was a free session or multiple session of applying this policy. It was 3 rounds of funds that were allocated for this measure. Totally, for all these years, was accessed, put on the disposal of the let's say, the pretenders for this measure, 578 million euros. was totally contracted 558 million euros for 40,000 young farmers, which access these funds. From total beneficiary, 4,000 of the young farmers were women. So this influx of young farmers wanted from the beginning to stabilize the rural population and to restart the local economy, trying to reduce the risk that these rural areas to be abandoned. So what are the, let's say, some of the main frame of the accessing this kind of funds for young farmers in order to, let's say, refurbish one farm if they have, conditioning or processing the operation in their farms, to move and start an organic type of farming, to integrate in associative forms. So several, let's say, conditions that could improve the points to access this kind of funds for young farmers, planting native varieties and breeds from the area, increasing also the level of the people involved in agriculture, the farmers, in order to have a very good qualification in agricultural field. From the funds that were accessed, the amount for a farm was between 40,000 to 70,000 euros per farm, depending on the how much surfaces they have on this disposable, and depending which were the plan of business for the surfaces that they wanted to work. So the funds for each of the farmers which obtained the funds from this kind of the policy instrument was 75% from the beginning of on signing the contract with the money owner, and 25% of the money were accessed after, let's say, 2 or 3 years after the good implementing of the good practice was observed and analyzed on their farm.
Daniel, 1 minute, please.
Yes, sorry. Young farmers, it means all the people that including 40 years of age and with appropriate qualification, of course, in order to setting up on the rural areas and to have for the first time an area for agricultural holding. So this good practice was on the stake on this project from our side, from the consortium, in order that it is possible that an effective way to be transferred to the other partners from the consortium for other countries, of course, with the careful adaptation in local context and challenges, in order to make much easy this implementation. The countries that could transfer this kind of good practice will need to have a well-defined policy frame, like we have in Romania related to young farmers, especially in agricultural field, rural areas, to have clear and eligibility criteria, timelines, and financial support in order for this kind of good practice. I hope I was short enough for the time. I would like to thank you in my name and also from our partnership from Down to Earth project. If you have questions and any comments to do, I'm open to answer. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Daniel, for your presentation and for this interesting initiative to bring young farmers out to the rural areas. You told us there were a little bit more than 14,000 farmers reached with this good practice. How many of these people have actually been, all of these moved from the city to a rural area?
The condition was, yes, to be the first time when they have, let's say, an agricultural property in the area, in the rural area, in order to be considered available to access this kind of funds.
this is a very nice result that you have been achieving there. So congratulations. This activity closed in 2018, if I remember well from your slides.
Yes.
Has it been sustainable in a way? Because now we are 6 years later.
There was another measure or policy instrument that continued this kind of measure of young farmers, which was established for the first time in the rural areas in order to cultivate the certain area of the field. The name of the measure, I think, is 12 investments in strengthening the holding of young established farmers and newly established farmers. So the measure that continues this measure was to provide another funds for the young farmer, which was already established from this good practice, in order to invest to develop the existing already farm for the first time, in order to improve or getting the whole process of providing the agricultural products, a continuity of other measures that encouraging more the one that have more than 5 years after accessing these funds, in order to invest in new machinery, in new, let's say, technologies on their farm. Of course, if there was the beneficiary of the first measure, the one that I was presented here.
Thank you, thank you. I think it's very good that you established there some continuation, that you can see that people after five. So if you have a very short answer, or if you have an answer, so how many of these 14,000 have been taking up this program after 5 years? Just like a very short answer. If you don't know,
I don't know exactly, but I think around 2000 or something, they apply for the second program that could improve their investments in their farm.
Thank you very much. I mean, 2000 is a good rate still after 5 years. Thank you so much, Daniel. With this, we are going from Romania. We're going directly to Tartu, to Estonia, where we are talking about a different policy area. So, hello, Sven. You will speak to us about the Tartu Smart Bike Share Program. So,
hello and greetings from this year European Capital of Culture, Tartu, and I'm Sven, and I'm taking you to sustainable mobility area, and my topic is Tartu Smart Bike Share, and we see it as a part of our mobility. Today's agenda, a really brief overview about the bike sharing system, integration with the public transport, and also impacts with the spatial planning and some of the shortcomings. Smart bike share, what we mean by this, it was launched in June 2019. It's a station to station principle, and altogether we have 69 docking stations in city of Tartu, and also in 3 neighboring municipalities, which are really close to Tartu. We have 750 bikes. Most of them are electric bikes, but we have also ordinary bikes. There you can see this map about our city of Tartu. We have the most docking stations in city of Tartu, but today we have exactly, the new stations were implemented in this year, August. We have already 100 stations, and you can see that some of them are in neighboring municipalities, and And even one is in a small village called Lähte, and it's approximately 18 kilometers from city center of Tartu. So it's quite far away. But we have also this electric stock station. As you can see, we have expanded these stations and bikes to nearby municipalities. The stations are modular, expandable by the number of ducts. So it's really simple to create more stations. And that's why we have expanded really a lot in previous years. And it's a really good example of the urban and rural linkage. Some of the statistics we have at the moment, active users about 2,500 people. All-time distance travel is quite enormous, 10 million kilometers. And there you can see also this most distance traveled by electric bikes and ordinary 8-speed bike. And really, for us, it's really important that we integrated also this smart bike share with the public transport. At the launching 2019, we also provided free ride with bus period tickets. But at the moment, we are using the same bus card. You can rent a bike, and then you can do your some of the trips, and then you can continue with the local city bus. So it's really good and convenient for local people, and it's really popular to use it. Yeah, some of glimpse of bike share stations in major hubs. We have a really good connection with transport hubs, the biggest bus station in city center, then of course the railway station, and also big commercial hubs where people are really actively doing the shopping, like Eden and Veeriku. Then some of the example we had 5 years ago, Metallica in city of Tartu, and then you can see how many users were using these electric bikes and ordinary bikes in Metallica concert. So we have used the data to see how people are moving, and especially in the biggest events like Metallica or some community days, which are in summer, and also other events. Also, for us, it's really important, and people can also drive to their where they're working. So we have created this cooperation with large-scale employers like Hansa, Huum, and Kaubajam, where the docking stations are there. And also really important to have this alternative way for transportation in big suburban areas like Ihaste, Kvisentali, or Variku. And as I mentioned previously, we have some of the stations already in Kambe municipality, Luine municipality, and Tartu rural municipality, and they are expanding every year. And some of the hindering.
Just 1 minute, please. Yes.
Yeah, that's my last slide. The availability of bikes is not guaranteed. That's a bit making some problems. We have 2 and 3 balancing teams, but we have lots of bikes and 100 stations. And the seasonal availability, because in the winter time we have lots of snow, and that's why the electric bikes aren't used in our city. In conclusion, we see this bike sharing system as a great supportive mean for transport network, not only in city of Tartu, but also in our suburban areas and nearby municipalities. Thank you from my side, and hope you had some glimpse of our topics in Tartu. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think it's a very interesting approach that you're showing us for the mobility. We have seen it's a very interesting subject for everyone. And you have shown how you're also trying to combine it with the municipalities that are a little bit further away, with events that may be outside the city, with going to the beach and so on. So, and you have an offer that allows long distance traveling, at least in the summertime when it's not snowing, with the electric bikes. So are you planning to further develop that, like so to better, even more and more better include the suburban or peri-urban areas around Tartu?
Yeah, that's the plan in nearby years. Also, to have more stations in suburban areas and also in nearby municipalities. And every municipality are paying their service fee. And the city of Tartu Transportation Agency is providing this service also to other municipalities. So it's really convenient. The municipalities have to find the money. That's the one of the challenges, definitely.
But you have interest from different municipalities. I think I've seen three which are already now connected with you.
Yeah.
So there are more municipalities coming on.
Hopefully, yeah. Even some of the more rural municipalities like Elva, their center is 25 kilometers from Tartu. So we see as a complex plan in the nearby future.
Very good. I mean, you even have tried to work with integrated ticketing, all these kind of approaches. So congratulations, and we wish you good luck with your further approaches to integrate the entire area that you're looking at, and of course for being the cultural city of Europe. That is excellent for this year. So thank you very much, Sven. I don't see any questions to Sven. I think we should go on. Moving now to Spain, and we have Jorge with us, and we're really grateful that you're with us after the terrible events that have been hitting the area. But still, you're talking to us about the 2030 plans of the Horta Sud region. So please, Jorge, let us know how you are working on urban-rural links.
Yeah, I share the screen. Yeah, you can see. Yeah. Good afternoon. First of all, thank you for the invitation to speak in this workshop. I am Jorge Boronat, the European Programs and Projects Technician at the Commonwealth of Horta Sud, and currently working on the Urban Co-op project Interreg Europe. Today, I will present an overview of the SERA 2030 plan for the future of the Horta Sud region. It's a regional initiative developed by the Fundación Horta Sud. This plan focuses on strengthening the role of organized civil societies to foster social cohesion and sustainable development across the Horta Sud region, located south of Valencia. This plan utilizes the community strengths to generate long-term benefits for the Horta Sud region. The region comprises 20 municipalities and a population of approximately 483,000 people, with over 3,000 associations active here. Civil society has been positioned as a core driver for environmental and social initiatives. The images highlight the geographical scope of this work, showing the Horta Sud area in relation to the nearby city of Valencia. This local context is essential to understanding how community-led efforts have been mobilized. Fundació Horta Sud was established in 1972 with a focus on supporting civil associations and building social capital. Over the decades, it has developed expertise in community-led initiatives that span environmental, economic, and social areas. The SERA 2030 plan aligns with this mission by focusing on three key objectives: environmental, renewable energy projects, sustainable mobility, and increasing green space in all these municipalities. Economic is supporting local employment, industrial modernization, and promoting circular economy practices. And social, enhancing inclusivity and community governance. This slide includes images of the different municipalities. Well, this initiative has led to several notable achievements. For example, the cycling infrastructure, over 30 kilometers of new bike lanes have been developed to promote sustainable transport and reduce emissions. Urban greenery, there has been an increase in green space, which contributes to biodiversity and improve air quality. And renewable energy, there are 4 energy communities that have been established to foster local energy self-sufficiency. The plan has also received recognition from the European Climate Pact, which acknowledges its contribution to environmental goals at the European level. And in these images, you can see the visuals of bike lanes and some green area and a table of the energy savings in the municipalities of the Horta Sud region. We can see that some municipalities have been more proactive and in adopting laws to benefit from renewable energy installations, while others are still in the process. The impact of the SERA 2030 plan can be seen across multiple dimensions. Environmental, the reduction in CO2 emissions is equivalent to the impact of planting 50,000 trees. Additionally, public buildings have improved energy efficiency by 20%. Approximately 1,500 jobs has been created, particularly in sustainable industries, and local business have received incentives to adopt circular economy practices. The plan has engaged over 5,000 citizens in participatory initiatives, reinforcing community involvement. These statistics provides a clearer sense of the plan, contributions to environmental sustainability, economic growth, and community engagement. For example, you can see key metrics that reflects the percentage of the municipal budget allocated to associations in the municipalities. The total budget for the SERA 2030 is set at 15 million euros for the period from 2020 to 30. This funding is structured as follows: 60% from European and national grants, 25% from regional partnerships, and 15% from local contributions. Annual allocations target priority areas, including 2.5 million euros from renewable energy, 1 million euros for sustainable mobility, and 1.5 million euros for green spaces. Partnerships with the Generalitat Valenciana, Diputación de Valencia, and other interested collectives have been fundamental in securing this budget. Here we have the different entities who provide funding, and this diversified approach aims to ensure financial stability and continuity for the plan. This plan has developed.
Just 1 minute, please.
Okay. Has developed a model that will be adapted by other regions. Key areas for potential replication include green infrastructure, community-driven governance, strengthening local associations, sustainable transport, expanding cycling and public transport networks. Here we found a screenshot from the website, the section of Sustainable Mobility Observatory in the region, specifically from the city of Torrent, where the Foundation and our Horta Sud Commonwealth are located. Foundation Horta Sud is prepared to share insights with other regions. This is a quote. So the great challenges of humanity are faced on the scale of cities, and when a territory has a project for the future, it can attract investment, talent, and initiative in the right direction. Now, the priority is to rebuild the lives of the citizens affected by the catastrophe and severe floods. And well, thank you for your time, and that's all.
Thank you very much, Jorge, for your presentation and for showing us not only what you have been doing, what you have been implementing, but also the impact that you have achieved, which we can congratulate you to. I mean, you have been really involving a lot of citizens in your work. You created new jobs in sustainable areas, and you have also had like a lot of impact already in terms of energy efficiency, reduction of greenhouse gas emissions, and so on. So this is really excellent. I also liked what you said about community-driven governance. So this is what maybe was the bottom-up approach coming into that. So thank you very much for this really inspiring example, if I may say, with a rather modest budget that you've had. You have been creating good infrastructures, had a lot of participation, and the monitoring is still going on, or you have already more results? How is this being organized?
Yeah, I need to say that this good practices from the foundation of the Horta Sud is not from me, so that's the difference. But the foundation continues monitoring all the indicators, and yes, improving trying to connect more well connected to Valencia. That's the problem, and connect better to the other municipalities from Valencia. Yeah, is now the problem, because they are well connected with Valencia, but not with each of the municipalities.
So to create a better network in that area. So thank you very much for your presentation. I think we have seen lots of different approaches here, also in that sustainable development session. I would ask all our speakers, Arnault, Mr. Neumüller, Dariusz, Eoin, Marcin, Daniel, Sven, and Jorge to turn on their cameras so that we can have like a last little round of feedback from you. I would kindly ask you to, share with us what do you think were your key learnings from the session that we had today. I don't know, Arnaud, do you feel fit for starting off a little key learnings on our workshop today?
That's a tough one, Astrid,
Yeah.
but yes, of course, I'm ready to share some key insights. I mean, we've seen many different approaches to tackle this challenge of urban-rural linkages, and as it's a complex issues. It's a complex process, and this is the usual one size. There is not one size fits all way of looking at urban-rural linkages. You have to really understand your context. You have to look at the specific interactions in your regions, trying to find the best functional areas. To define the right governance. Governance was also one of the key issues that was mentioned by some of our speakers. So finding the right context, the right interactions, the right functional areas, the right governance structures, and but there are many good practices that have been shared and that can inspire our participants to better design urban-rural linkages.
Thank you for starting out and trying to summarize from your side what are the key learnings, the key takeaways that you have. Maybe I can continue with Eoin.
Yeah, I think what Arnault said really resonated with me as well about that kind of the context being king, and really just understanding, I guess, what you're trying to achieve and who are the best people to get around the table to achieve that as well. And it was interesting as well just to hear the different, I guess, instruments and methodologies as well that people are using, as well as you know, I think in the Southern Region Assembly we are you know, looking at ways to improve our regional tier government. So just to hear the experiences of others and how they're going about those changes. Particularly the kind of the German example as well. So yeah, they're really good learning for us, and good to see how those things happen and how others plan their regions as well.
Yeah, thank you very much. Just to see a little bit how others are tackling similar issues and what governance structures they have, how they work with stakeholders, what plans they're doing, which areas they're tackling. So very interesting. Maybe we can go to Dariusz.
I was in particular very inspired with what Jürgen was saying about this metropolitan area of Berlin and the land and how they work together in developing the communication channels. Because I come from Silesia, which is very similar to the Berlin urbanized area, and this example is quite relevant because we have been in Silesia trying to solve the communication issues for decades now, but it's very, very complicated and requires a lot of investment but not only, but also good ideas for best solutions. What was in terms of particular solutions, the Tartu example with bikes was extremely interesting, just to having a combination of regular bikes and electric bikes. And what was because we also have those bikes for rent, but the approach of Tartu to include the bikes into the communication system, just interacting with buses and the building a network of extra options for communication was very interesting. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dariusz, for your words and for pointing out the examples that you liked. Yeah, also for the land use, for the biking, and how you can, use your biking systems in different ways and integrate them with other modes of transport. Let me go to Daniel.
Hello. It was very nice to participate to this kind of sharing our experience, our knowledge, our policy instruments in our areas, and how this could be extended to the other areas. This is, in fact, the purpose of the Interreg Europe project, and that's why I think this kind of communication and consortium between this kind of project and sharing the knowledge, the good practice in our countries, how could be transferable and adaptable to other regions, other countries, other, let's say, parts of Europe. It is like a big other project gathering here and sharing our knowledge, our good practices between the speakers and the audience. And I think all of us, we have something to learn and something to, let's say, reach out to put in our, let's say, decision makers in our region or countries, how the things are going well or good in other parts, and how much of this good practice could be borrowed and to be applicable, adaptable to our regions. In fact, if I may, if you allow me, all of you, I think because my side is from agriculture and climate change and meteorological part, I think the climate change is the biggest challenge in this moment for all of us. It doesn't matter the different domain that we come
Daniel,
from.
make it short, please.
Yeah.
Everybody still has a chance to speak.
Yes, I would like to thank you again for being here and sharing our good practices and knowledge. Thank you.
Yeah, I think you made an important point. This is not only a one-way street, like somebody learning, you're also sharing your experiences. So this is excellent, what you have presented as well. So everybody can do some of this capacity building that we are trying to do. So let's go to Jorge.
Yeah, for me, I was inspired by the mix of governments approach. The example of mobility in Tartu is a key element to move between the cities of Horta Sud and to try to not to use always the private car. I think this is a very interesting project to implement, for example, in the Horta Sud region, and to engage the local governments to put the same system, because they sometimes have different systems of bikes in every municipality. So for me, this is very interesting.
Thank you very much. And Sven, so you hear lots of nice words about what you're implementing in Tartu. So, but what are your key takeaways from the other examples that we have been hearing today?
Yeah, firstly, about this policy mix, we see this smart bike share as a good example of policy mix, because we have their mobility, we have digitalization, we have people well-being, and altogether it's sustainability. And also it's really popular for young people in our area. They don't want to buy a car. They want to use these bikes and also these biogas buses, which are operated in city of Tartu and also in our county. And secondly, I was really inspired by Daniel presentation about this young farmers project. I see also this we could implement this in our region, in the Tartu region, and even in South Estonia region, because it's a good example how to find these linkages between urban and rural areas. They can start a farm in rural area outside of Tartu, like 50 kilometers, and afterwards they can create maybe their own restaurant in city of Tartu, or their own coffee shop or something.
Exactly.
So, yeah, so it's really good method.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's not only about the growth in the cities, it's also about the depopulation in the rural areas. How can you do something about that? So with that, I would like to give the final words to our keynote speakers. So I start maybe with Marcin and then Mr. Neumüller.
Yes, thank you. So I made a lot of notes, and there was really an inspiring session. And I'm even more convinced right now that we need a coordination based on work with a diverse group of actors. So not only working with the classical, so to say, policymakers or the public administration, but trying to involve as much as possible other groups of governance actors. And also what emerged from our study is that the citizens are slightly under-involved, so to say, in that kind of activities. Of course, it has to be based on excellent communication. So I very much like what Dariusz was saying, using design, for example, into that kind of activities, and using art actually in the communication activities, in encouraging people to, for example, use the bikes instead of driving a car, or use the public transportation. I think there is also a very much unexplored niche right now. And as I'm observing, for example, the new European Bauhaus initiative, there is quite a lot of things going on right now on a European Union level with this regard. And of course, thinking beyond administrative boundaries. This is not a big surprise that I'm saying this right now. It is a challenge, but I think that if we want to tackle the urban-rural linkages, then we should think about it and should find the really good ways to support the maybe less equipped and maybe a little bit marginalized communities. I think that this marginalization process becomes even a bigger and bigger problem, political problem and socio-economical problem in the European Union.
Thank you. Thank you very much for pointing this out and for bringing some more interesting aspects to this. So the final word, Mr. Neumüller, is for you. What are your conclusions?
Okay, yeah, thank you very much. I think Marcin said that there are these classical actors, and we count ourselves as a classical actor, let's say. And what becomes more and more clear that, let's say, our reach out is limited, so to say. But nonetheless, our initiatives, let's say, on administrative level, they are essential, or they are prerequisite, let's say, for this kind of cooperation we are all looking for. I would just to point out that there are also initiatives of metropolitan regions like METREX and also projects ongoing on governance in metropolitan regions where we discuss this issue of EU funds being used also in our contexts. And there are also regions from Poland, Czech Republic, Italy, Germany involved in this. So this, I think, is on one hand an important issue still ongoing. But on the other hand, what I learned today is the variety of initiatives and projects ongoing. And this is, let's say, filling these topics with life and real concrete measures, so to say. And I'm interested in follow-up with Jorge about this financing scheme you established. I think this is very essential to keep something going, not to finish with the project, but also to have the structures in place so that initiatives, let's say, are creating more impact and more valuable impact. I haven't been able to listen to Daniel presentation, but I assume that your initiative is also aiming at this point, and Tartu was really impressive. How this single initiative on bikes has a much greater impact to the development of the region. So thank you very much for this very inspiring session.
Thank you. So a lot of nice conclusions, a lot of inspiring ideas. I hear that everybody took something away from the others and thinks that he might be able to integrate it, which is excellent. For me, what I've heard a lot is we can use the creativity of the citizens, have some community engagement, and also the creativity of our companies, of the artists, of the farmers, in bringing these different plans to life. So it's good to have a good governance structure, but it's also good to use the bottom-up approaches that are coming all over the communities for integrating better the urban rural areas. So with this, I would like to say a big thank you to our speakers today, to the colleagues for preparing everything and for making our exchanges possible. So please be so kind to give us your feedback. How did you like it when the survey is popping up? And if you need more interesting subjects like that, let us know what you want to discuss. We are happy to bring it to you and to do some more of this capacity building, which is needed all around Europe. So a big thank you to everyone, and see you on one of our next events from the Interreg Europe Policy Learning Platform. For now, bye-bye and take care. And the people that have a help desk, don't run away. We're still here for you.